Bruchim Avoim B'Shem Hashem B'Shem Egin Shir Torah. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's shir from Yakov and Chanukah Davening and Halacha and Minhag. I'd like to notify the Olam that the shir next Sunday, Sunday Chanukah, will be 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock next Sunday. Please let everyone know. Now today's shir from Yakov and Chanukah Davening, Halacha and Minhag.
When it comes to these days of Chanukah, it's the old question: what's the most important part of Chanukah? Is it the latkes, the donuts, the dreidel? Some a little more the haibin, he maybe thinks about the hadlakas neres Chanukah. But today we're going to learn al pi halacha what really is the ikka part of ner Chanukah, and it's a mavaldika sugya, because in so many different places la halacha, there's not a shmuz, but you see that there's really a very important aspect, which is really the ikka of ner Chanukah, of the mitzvah of the Yom Tov of Chanukah. The Chassam Sofer in Tshuva and Yeredeya, and the end of Reish Lamed Gimel, says his famous Kiddush, he repeats it in Archaim and Tshuva's Reish Ches, that Efsha, Kriyas Hallel, the Hallel that we say on Chanukah, is a deraisa. And of course, I should mention, he's not the first one that says this. There's Daniel Habavli in the Sefer Hanisim. I saw this quoted in the Yibiyayim Vav Mem Hey, and the Emek Bracha quoting Rishonim that also say that the Hallel on Chanukah could be a deraisa. Yocham Fishel Perlau and Asay Nuntes feel that's the shita of the Smag. So you're talking about Gedolei Rishonim that say Hallel on Chanukah is deraisa. Now it sounds great, but it can't be, because the whole Chanukah is only D'Rabbanan. Chanukah wasn't the times of the Torah. And the Tashbitz, one of the Rishonim who lived a few hundred years before the Chassam Sofer, in Chelik Bey's Kufay Aleph, in a different context about the Lashon of deraisa. But at the very end he throws in, but when the Gemara says, the famous Gemara in Tainis Chav Chesem et Beis, Hallel on Rosh Chodesh Lav deraisa, don't be medayik, but on Chanukah it is a deraisa, because it can't be. Because the whole Chanukah is the Rabbanan. Now he's not asking on the Chassam Sofer, he was many days before the Chassam Sofer. But the point is, what does the Chassam Sofer mean? So we're going to try to understand a little bit about the ikka of the mitzvah of Chanukah, and hopefully understand what the Chassam Sofer really meant. The Gemara that we all know, it's interesting that we know this, we learn it all the time, but we don't pick up on one of the obvious messages. So tomorrow in Shabbos, Chafalf Mabeis, my Chanukah, the Tana Rabbanan, the whole story about the Nes Chanukah. So, and the Gemara continues, Lashana Acheres, the next year, Kava'um v'asum yomim toivim, b'halal v'haidah. First of all, it's a Kiddush. Chanukah is a Yom Tov, there's no Isim Halacha. But more importantly, what is the Yom Tov? They made a Yom Tov b'halal v'haidah. It doesn't say latkes or donuts or dreidel or ner Chanukah. And the Bach in Tov Reish Ayin asked the question on the Gemara. What do you mean? The ikka of Chanukah is halal v'haidah. What happened to the Hadlakas Neres Chanukah? But if any doubt, Rashi on that Gemara answers both kashas b'chada mechta. So Rashi lo yisasur mimalacha. No, it's not an ism malacha like Pesach or Shavuos. Ela shalenikfu ela likreis halel v'loim al hanisim b'haidah. Pilaplayim. The Gemara and Rashi are saying in no uncertain terms that the ikka Yom Tov of Chanukah is the halal v'haidah. Now the emes is it's not such a chiddush to us, because we say 3 times a day, if not more. If we bench, is even more. But at least 3 times a day in the Hanisim, we say, V'kavu shmoynes yemei Chanukah elu, l'hoidais u'lahalel l'shimcha gadol. And how about what we say in the Haneres Halalu? Kol shmoynes yemei Chanukah, Haneres Halalu koydeshem, ve'ein lanu shus l'shtamish behem. Don't use it. Why? Kidei l'hoidais u'lahalel l'shimcha gadol. Everybody's saying that the Yom Tov of Chanukah is a halal v'haidah. And Avada, don't forget, Avada, the Hadlakas ner Chanukah is a mitzvah yikara. But as we'll soon see, even that is a form of loydis halal. The whole Hadlakas ner Chanukah is Pesumei Nisa. What's Pesumei Nisa? It's not just the Ma'isa Hadlaka, but it's to promote Halal v'haidah HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I'll tell you a daven nifla, it always bothered me, but this year I think I understood on a much more practical level. Many people have this minhag ad hayoim, probably half of Klal Yisrael, which is based on Masechta Sifrei. The Shulchan Aruch and Tafresh Ayin Vav Siv Dalet quotes the Masechta Sifrei that the minhag is that you make the bracha l'having ner shel Chanukah, then you say or sing haneres halalu, and as you're saying or singing haneres halalu, you light the other neres. First of all, when we do a mitzvah, we give it our full, undivided attention. We don't sing and do something. And also, it might be a shtickle hefsik. You make a bracha on the 5th night, it's going on all the 5 lichtelach. So why are you singing before you light the 5? And taka, many people have the minhag, they first things first. You light all the neres, and then you say neres halal. But as I told you, the Masechta Sifrei and the Mechaber quotes this, to do like many people do. You make the bracha, light 1, and then you say haneres halalu. The pshat is because haneres halalu, soon Zalman says is plus, is a reminder that it's not just a ma'isa koif ba'am, not just lighting ner Chanukah. Lahoidais ula Hallel shimcha gadol. So a person that lights it and then wakes up, oh, what did I do? He missed the boat. So we have to b'shas adlaka, we have to program ourselves. We are lighting neiros to bring out a pesumei nisa, because the mitzvah of ner Chanukah is also a form of halal v'hoidah. But we have even more. The Gemara in Erech Daf Yud has a famous breakdown of the times during the year we say Hallel. 18 days a year we say Hallel Shalom, Gans Hallel. 8 days of Sukkot, 8 days of Chanukah. In Eretz Yisrael, 1 day Pesach and 1 day Shavuos. But we know Rosh Chodesh and Pesach, the rest of the Pesach is Chatzi Hallel. Now, Bemis in Svara, it should be fakert. Rosh Chodesh has a makar in the Torah. I mean, I can't say Rosh Chodesh is the Raisa because the Mechaber in Tafkuf Ayin and Siv Gimel seems to hold. So Mr. Tzibur explains that Rosh Chodesh is not the Raisa. But it definitely has the makar in the Torah. V'yayim simchaschem u'v'mayadeichem u'v'rashi chadshechem. In Ma'aseh and Simon Kuflan Aleph, that has the Goyin, wore his Shabbos hat on Rosh Chodesh because he held Rosh Chodesh the Raisa. But Chanukah is the Rabbanan. So why punkt 8 days of Chanukah Gans Hallel and Rosh Chodesh Chatzi Hallel? But the Kash is stronger. Why taka manishtana Sukkos from Pesach? Pesach, only the first day we say Gans Hallel, and Sukkot every day. So we know the Gemara says because Sukkot is cholok b'korban oseyim. Every day there's a different carbon. You know, when you daven Sukkot, it's a little complicated. You have to know in the Musaf which carbon, and you know, especially if a siddur that has Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz, you get good and confused. Say the wrong day. Pesach is a machaya. It's the same. It's not cholok. So now the question is, but there's no karbonis by Chanukah. So why every day Chanukah is Hallel Shalom? So Tosis and Tainus Chav Chesem Beis, because each day of Chanukah the Nes was greater and greater. So it's cholok in the Nes. The Beis Yosef in the beginning of Tafresh Pei Gimel quotes Shiboli Aleket Kufay and Dalet that adds 2 other reasons. First of all, the fact is that Lamaisa, we say a different Nasi every single day, and also Zok the Shiboli Aleket, that the fact that each day we light an extra ner, Ma'asav Hailach, that's why Chanukah is also cholok. Good. Oh, very nice. Technically, you're right. But how could it be that Chanukah is more than Hallel? So for us, more than Rosh Chodesh, the teretz is pashit, like we said. Because if you understand that that's the tzuras ha-mitzvah of Chanukah, l'hoidis or Hallel, it doesn't suffice with a chatzi Hallel. But we definitely see, and we'll see more as we proceed, that Hallel is integral. The ikar kavu yishmoinis mei Chanukah is Hallel. That's why I would mention halacha. I don't know if it says in Shulchan Aruch, but I think it's emes. You know, we definitely see the tremendous ahavas hamitzvah Yidden have for Ner Chanukah, the koiches Yidden put into halachos Ner Chanukah, moisuva hoylech and mahadrin, and the avodah is wonderful. But remember, as we see, the Hallel is as great, if not greater, than the halachos Ner Chanukah. Hallel also has to be moisuva hoylech. You know, the 5th day should be better than the first day. We shouldn't be burnt out by the 5th day. We should be on fire a lot more. You know, people say, I have to run Torah. I can't finish davening. It's my job. Once over Moshe Wolfson saying, you know what your job is? Shekein chayvas kol hayitzurim. What do we say in the Shabbos davening? L'hoydais u'lahalal shebeach lefor l'rem l'hadratzeach. That's the whole year. But especially by the Hallel in Chanukah, it would be a wonderful thing if we make a commitment to Hallel should be better every day, Maariv v'hoylach. But Rabbi said that's not the full picture yet. Because there's another part of L'hoydais u'lahal that Rashi mentions, and that is the Hanisim that we add in davening and benching. I must tell you, there are three prominent sources for the Hanisim: a Tosefta, Masechta Seifrim, and the Shiltis. It's all mentioned by the Rishonim. And the Shulchan Aruch devotes a whole siman Tov Reish Pei Beis, the Halachos of Hanisim in davening and in benching. In fact, it's so much integral to the Yom Tiv that the Paiskim, the Rishonim, struggle. Why is there no mention of Chanukah in the Me'en Shalosh? Vivait Me'en Shalosh is a deraisa, according to many. It's a small benching. It should have Hanisim, something about Chanukah. So the Pashta Teres Maram Rutmerg in Prague, Simonai, the Levush is famous in Reish Ches Yud Beis, but the Maram Rutmerg says this Yisoid, that really the Hanisim has to be in a Haidah. In benching and in davening, it's in the Haidah section. There is no Haidah section in Alamichya. Even though we say the words V'noida L'cha, that's just a nusach of the end of the bracha. But there's no part of Alamein Shalash that's Haidah. But if you want to see something interesting, in the new Pardas Yosef in Chanukah, it's a whole volume of Chanukah, on Tov Peites, he puts together 11 reasons why there's no mention of Chanukah in Hanisim. And Halei Davahu, because in the Men Shalish, and Halei Davahu, because if you understand how important it is, it should be there, and you have to have 11 good reasons why it's not there. Okay. Now, Lamaisa, people have this attitude, Hanisim, it's not like Baruch Hashem, it's not like Yal V'Yavai and Yom Tiv. If I forget it, it's not true. We'll soon see some place holds Ma'akiv. But I'll tell you what I found astonishing. The Chochma Shloim, Reb Shloim McCluger has notes on the page in Shulchan Aruch. In Tov Reish Pei Gimel, he has two shilas. I hope they're hypothetical. But he has two shilas. One shilah about someone's in jail, and they let him do one mitzvah on Chanukah. Hallel or Halachos Ner Chanukah. What does he do first? Or someone's traveling, and the way it is, he could only stop once. He could stop at night to light Ner Chanukah, or he could stop by day and say Hallel. What should he do? So he says, I wrote in my sefer, my chibur ala Torah, that Avada he should say Hallel. We would say Avada Ner Chanukah. The Shulchan Aruch says Moicha Ksusay Magzal Apsachim for Ner Chanukah. He says Pashit Hallel goes first. Now they just recently printed his sefer ala Torah, and he says there, what's my makar? It's Perish Gemara. Shabbos Chaf Aleph. The Gemara says my Chanukah. What does it mean, my Chanukah? What is the ik of the Yom Tiv? And what does the Gemara respond? What's the ik of the Yom Tiv? Halavaydah. He says, my Yom Tiv Lashon HaRashi, Likreis Halav V'leim Hanisim. Why didn't Rashi, when he's talking about the ik of Chanukah, say that the ik of Chanukah is Halachos Neiros? Muchach, that the ikka takana of Chanukah is the Halavaydah. Look how he took this literally, that l'hoydais ulahala is the ikka of the Yom Tiv. Reb Shlomo Zalman in the Alicha Shlomo Chanukah Perek Zayin Orah 14 takes strong exception, and because the Maisa, if you have a choice, Ner Chanukah should be first, and plus Ner Chanukah is also a form of Halavaydah. So we hope it's never negeya. But one thing I will say, I think it's very clear that Ner Chanukah, the Ner Chanukah is important. But the theme of the day is the Hallel V'Haidah, and the Hallel should have such a wonderful panim like it's supposed to have. Reb Shlomo Zalman has a priceless tshuva in Mincha Shlomo Tinyana, Siman Nun Ches. If you have time, even if you don't have time, make time, you'll see in Ois Hey, he goes through this theme, and he shows how that's really the theme of the Yom Tiv, L'hoydais Ula Hallel. In fact, he goes a step further. He quotes the Bach, on our simon, that the Bach says that the real minig was in Masechta Seifrim that they made L'havim Ner Chanukah, Then they said or sang Haneris Halalu. Then they made the last two brachas, and then they lit. It's Pilaployim. What kind of shot does that have? So he says, because you have to mechaven when you light Ner Chanukah that the ik is l'hoidus l'halal. So you have to get yourself ready for that. So this is sort of like a preparation. Haneris Halalu Kedusha, and why is it there? L'hoidus l'halal. Then he goes and he adds another gem. He says that lighting Ner Chanukah in shul is only a minhag. But the minhag is a universal minhag. We make a bracha on it. Where do we find making a bracha on a minhag? Even the heilige minhag of Aravas don't make a bracha. He says, but Vais Techois, Halacha is like Hallel, very good, and Hallel will also make a bracha on a minhag. Then he says it's also for the old kasha. Why do we light Ner Chanukah Leil Chafei? That wasn't the Nes. It wasn't yet the Nes. It didn't happen until the next day. He says because the Ikka Nes is the Atzalah. Because the Hadlokis Ner Chanukah is a form of Hallel on the Nes. And then he quotes the Gemara in Sanhedrin, the Halacha Testament Beis, that the word Yom Tiv, Ki Toiv, is when someone's able to say Hallel. He says when the Gemara says Kavum, Shmoinas, become Yimei Yom Tiv, the Hallel Vaydah, the Gemara says, you know why it's a Yom Tiv? Not like a Malacha. It's a Yom Tiv because it's an opportunity the Yid has to be able to say Hallel. For 8 days in a row, we say Hallel Shalim. So this is why Lamaisa, as we'll proceed, we'll see more. But I think it's very pashut what the Chasam Sofer meant. Avada, the Chasam Sofer knew that the Chanukah was after the Torah was given. But since, as some Rishonim, the Ramban says it, and the Smag seems to say it, that Lamaisa Hallel on a Nes is a Chiv Deraisa. When someone has a Nes, he has to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You know, Stam, you don't get bargains for free. You have to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So even though Chanukah, the story of Chanukah was much later, but since we understand that it's a great Nes, we have to say how. I'll give you a funny mashal, but I'll bring out the point. Can I say that if you eat 3 pieces of pizza, you have to bench me deraisa? I can say it, right? It makes sense, right? I didn't have pizza in times of the Torah. It's an Italian food. They didn't have the Italy in times of the Torah. That's an Irish kasha. What do you mean? You have to bench when you eat. So if you eat pizza, you eat mon, same thing, right? Nes requires halal, midaraisa. Granted, the Nes could be that happened much later. But the Chasam Sofer's hergish was that a Yid has to be platzing, bursting from halal vaydah. And as we said, it has to be moisef or hoylech. Now that we have, hopefully, a better appreciation of the Yom Tov, let's apply this to the halachos of tefillah. We'll break it up. We'll talk about the halal, and then we'll talk about the hanisim. So first of all, I hope this never happens, but let's say someone asks you after the shir. I remember last year at a shayla, I wasn't sure if I said halal on Chanukah. So obviously, if he doesn't know if he said halal, it was yena halal. Tzarachi and gadol. But the emes is that you might think like Chasam Sofer, you have to repeat the halal. Sveika deraisa l'chumra. But that's stretching it because lamaisa the halal on Chanukah, most poskim say, is the rabbanan. It means it has a makar in the Torah. Plus the Shagas Aryeh in Siman Samachtes proves that all Hallel is the Rabbanan, and he says Safek Hallel is Safek Rabbanan. So we would advise that person, if you don't know if you said Hallel, say it again, Avada, but not to make a bracha. The Minchas Peter Me'arik in the Archaim Tafresh Pei Gimel regarding Chanukah specifically says Safek Hallel, don't you repeat it without a bracha. But let me tell you a kayat that's much more negay. It's negay to at least half of Klal Yisrael. And that is on Noshim, Chayiv and Hallel on Chanukah. Question first, do they have to say Hallel? Neshei Svard, that when they do a mitzvah they're not mechuyev to do, like Sukkah, Lulav, they don't make a bracha. Can they make a bracha on Hallel? And if whatever, my man is not feeling well, he can't say Hallel, whatever reason, can his wife be moitzim, his daughter be moitzim? So the basic klal by mitzvahs is mitzvah shezman gram and nashim apata. A wonderful mashal would be, Tais and Sukkot Daf Lamed Ches, says that Noshim are potter from Hallel on Yom Tiv, like they're potter from Mitzvahs Yom Tiv. You're potter from Sukkah and Lulav, you're potter from Hallel. Why? Because it's a Banavide Zman Grama. So let us assume, Oy Bazoi, that Noshim are potter from Hallel on Chanukah. And the Mashmois of the Rambam in Hilchas Chanukah Gimel Yudalid, that indeed Noshim are potter from Hallel on Chanukah. But the obvious question is, there's one major exception, and that is Hallel Leil Seder, Af Hein Oiba Oisanes. So since women were included in the nest of Chanukah, in fact, you could even suggest they were the Ikenes Yehudis with Antiochus, so why shouldn't there be a chiyuv for them to say Hallel like Leilei Pesach? But for us, it's much more compelling. If we understand that the Ikka mitzvahs of Chanukah is the Hallel Vaydah, how could Nashim be part of the Ikka mitzvahs Chanukah? Haloi Dvarim Kal V'choyma. If Nashim are chayiv in Hadlokis Ner Chanukah, so how could they not be chayiv in Hallel? And maybe we could even suggest, interesting ha'ara, that if Taisus says they're part of Hallel like Sukkot and Atzeres, they're only chayiv in Hallel on Leil Seder. Why didn't Taisus say Chanukah? Maybe that's a raya, zokt the Minchas Pitim, that Nashim are chayiv and Hallel on Chanukah. Okay, it's not such a big raya, because when Taisus says the exception is the chayiv on Leil Seder. Why didn't Taisus say plus Chanukah? So I don't know if it's a raya from Taisus. But one thing I will tell you, the Chavas Yor Mekor Chayim Tov Reish Mem Dalid, he says Nashim are part of them all Hallel, except for Pesach and Chanukah. Ayin Taisus Sukkah Lamed Ches. Now you look up in Taisus, you're not going to find anything about Chanukah. But what he means to say is that Vivayit Nashim Achayiv and Hallel Seder Afhein, that applies to Chanukah as well. The Binyan Shloim, Rab Shloim Vilna, in the Tshuva quoted in the Steichemed, it's Chelik Ches, it's page 46. He says that really the Gemara says that Chayiv Ner Chanukah l'Rebusa, even though Ner Chanukah was an avoida in Beis HaMikdash, which Nashim Apata from contributing to, still the Chayiv in Hadlokas Ner Chanukah. But Hallel is Pashit. In other words, he's asking a question. The Gemara says Nashim Chayiv in Ner Chanukah. Let the Gemara say the Chayiv in Hallel. He says that's Pashit. Because Afan by Sanes. The Kiddush is the avoida of Ner Chanukah, which is Beis HaMikdash related. That's the Chayiv. But Avada, they are Chayiv in Hallel. Now, Lamaisa, the Cyrus Tshuva, that was some Seif is Einikel, in Chelik Gimel Taf Ayin Aleph, also says that he has more of an arichis. Nashim are chayiv in the Hallel on the days of Chanukah. Rav Moshe are chayim Aleph Kuf Tzadik. Rav Shevet Alevi and Aleph Reishei also conclude la halacha that Nashim are chayiv in the Hallel on the 8 days of Pesach of Chanukah. I'm sorry. However, equally impressive list of poitrim. The Magen Avram, Tav Chav Beis Hey, followed by the Bialacha. Rabbi Yashiv and Kovetz Tshuvas Chelik Gimel Kuf Hey feel that the fact that Taisus says only on Leil Seder, Nashim are potter from the Hallel on Chanukah. Rabbi Shlomo Zalman has a big problem because Lishi Tosoi that Nashim that Hallel is the ik of the Yom Tiv. Why are Nashim potter? So he has a whole cheshbon in that tshuva, and he basically says that the Hallel is more of the Yom Tiv than it is on the Nes. He says, Vakert, where is there more Pesume Nisa, Hallel Vaydah, for the Nes of Chanukah? In the Adlokis Ner Chanukah, or in the Hallel? You look in the whole Hallel, you won't see a word about Chanukah. It's Shavach Vaydah. But the Nashim have to have some form of Hallel Vaydah, and that's the lighting of the Ner Chanukah. That's much more of a pronouncing the Nes of Chanukah. But the Hallel is a generic lashon for all of the Adbayin Shlam's Chesed. So Lamaisa, it's a beautiful shtickle Torah. What's Lamaisa? Should we tell our Nashim to say Hallel every single day? So Avada, if the Isha asks, and if she could say Hallel, definitely there's a big makam to say the Chayiv. I'm talking about Gedolei Paiskim. But don't forget that the women are busy with children, and even davening for them is sometimes a struggle. You know, the Chafetz Chaim's son said he heard from his mother that she'd come out never daven because her husband, your father, and the Chafetz Chaim patted me. Mishnah he writes that you have to daven Shachar and Mincha. That's if you're not busy. But if you're busy, your priority is children. So I think we could say if an Isha wants to, has the time, Avada she should. It's pretty yitachan dechayiv. But if she's busy with children, just like she's potter from davening, potter from Hallel as well. Taka Reb Shlomo Vilna in that tshuva in the Stei Chemed, he has a beautiful pshara, and he says, just like many women cannot daven the whole davening, they're busy. They say one tefillah, the yaitza, the Magen Avram's famous chiddush in Kuvav, yaitza with the tefillah achas. So an ish that can't say Gans Hallel, at least say one shevach, maybe Mizmah Shir Chanukah Sabayis, something that brings out the Hallel Vayda on Chanukah. Now, I was thinking you could be yaitzu with the Haneres Halalu on the night before, but it's not true. Because the Chiv of Hallel is dafka by day, Mizach Shemesh ad Mevoyi. Next question, I hope it should not be Negeya, but the question is, if there's a base ovel, if people are sitting Shiva on Chanukah, what is the procedure? So the embassy wonder, what's the Shayla? An oinen is part of a mitzvahs, but an ovel is chayv in all mitzvahs. And the embassy says there's no mention of saying Hallel in a base ovel at all, when let's say on Rosh Chodesh, Chanukah, but Lamaisa, it's clear that an ovel is pata, l'chayra. The Reikeach, one of the Rishonim, in Siman Shin Tezayin, has 3 reasons why it's not said, the Hallel is not said by an ovel. First of all, it's a dvar simcha, inappropriate for a base ovel. Secondly, lo yig l'rosh, listen to a sensitivity. We're going to say that lo yameis mihal luka, and it's yadua that the neshama of the mace is einen neshama, is there. That's why when you have one avel, you still say hamakim menachem eschem, because you menachem the mace, the avel, and the neshama. And Moshe says you can't be yoitz to the full mitzvah of nichem aveil on a telephone, because it's chesed im ha-meisim, and got to be there. The neshama is there. So here the Rekeach is saying an exquisite thought. You can't say Hallel, Haluka, if the neshama is there. And the third reason, he says that Hallel really b'yechidus we don't say on Rosh Chodesh. The Ma'aseh Minhag we do say it, but some say Yoch is not chayiv in Hallel on Rosh Chodesh. So Mikolin Taima, he said. He says that no doubt about it, the Abel does not say Hallel. Now, the Mishnah in Kuf Lamed Aleph Sif Katan Chaf brings the Magen Avram that there's no Hallel in the base Abel on Rosh Chodesh. Even those that daven there, when they go home, do not have to say Hallel. Now, there's a later Minhagim, Mr. Rav says it already by Surah Vayashiv in his Chuvas, in his Sefer, on Hilchos Aveil says it. The Rav is clear that Lamaisa, after they go home, the people that daven with the Avel should say Hallel in their homes, because you got to say it b'yechidus. Regarding Chanukah, we find much more of a chiyuv, and I understand why. Vivait, that's the ik of the Yom Tov Hallel. How could anybody not say Hallel? Loimi boy, the tzibur has to say Hallel sometime, but even the Avel. Don't forget, the Avel does light Ner Chanukah. On Purim, he does listen to the Megillah. And that's probably why the Magen Avram, in same shtickle, he says that Lamaisa, the Avel, in the base Avel, they don't say it. I guess the reason that we said of Neshama is there. But he says, when you go home, make sure to say it. But Lamaisa, it's more than that. Thank you very much, appreciate it. Besides the fact that Taka, the people that daven there must say Hallel, some actually say that the Avel himself is chayiv in Hallel. As early as the Yavitz and the Siddur, and I saw the Chidah, Machzik Bracha, and the Rav, the Chasam Soifa on the Gilyon, and Shulchan Aruch, Kaf HaChaim, and others, all say that the Avel himself is chayiv. Because he's chayiv in pursuing Nisa, and their Chanukah, he's chayiv in Purim. Why is Hallel different? So it seems that, I can't say, in Avelis, there's different Minhagim. But I think the predominant minig is that they say it in the base Avel. The Avel steps out, and the Avel hears the bracha from the Shliach Tzibur, because some hold he's Pata, that he shouldn't say it. He says Hallel in a different room, and the Tzibur says it either in the room of the Avelis or a different room. Probably better to say Hallel in a different room. At least maybe you don't interfere with the Neshama that's there. But no doubt about it, Rav Sternbach brings it out very well in the Chuvas Gimel Reish Yud Zayin. He says, how could a Avel not say Hallel? That's the ik of the Yom Tov. So Lamaisa, they do say that if you do say it in the base Avel, which is the minig, you shouldn't sing the Hallel. That's already inappropriate. But definitely, we see the main minhagim do include the Avel somewhat in the mitzvah. Question, someone asked this question, he daven b'yechidus on Chanukah. That was, the first avla. And for some reason, he only said chatzi Hallel. Don't ask me why. The question is, does he have to repeat the Hallel with the bracha? He only said chatzi Hallel. So the emphasis is, we call it chatzi Hallel, but it's really not chatzi Hallel. It's the whole Hallel missing 2 parakim, 2 kapitlach. But Lamaisa, the Mishnah says this in Tov Peiches Sifka and Beis. The Rav says it also, that Lamaisa, the Hallel has to be complete. Hallel Shalom has to be complete. You can't say it Lamafreya, and more so, and the Rav says it in Kuf Peiches Beis also, that if someone missed even one word, he's not Yoitz the Hallel. Mishnah cautions Grada in Sharat Tzion that say Hallel from a Siddur. Because there are some parts of the Hallel that are very similar, but you might end up skipping a few words or lines. L'mashal, B'tzeis Yisrael B'Mitzrayim, you'll see there's a repetition that somehow you could end up missing a few words. Or in the Min HaMeitzah, Sevavuni, Yemin Hashem, B'kitzah, sometimes you could, derail and go and miss a few words. So if you miss a few words, you're not Yoitza. If you miss 2 kapitlach, you're not Yoitza. And the emes the Halacha in Siman Mem Tes, it's kedai to see. He says, really, you're allowed to say Hallel Bal Peh. Because Hallel, we know it's morgul. But make sure you don't miss a word. Because you miss a word, your bracha, you're not Yoitza, and your bracha is Levatala. Which is important to mention. 8 days of Hallel Shalom, make sure you say Hallel from a Siddur. Don't, try to say it by heart, because sometimes you miss a word or 2. So therefore, it makes sense, if you want Yoitza the Hallel because you skipped 2 kapitlach, avad you have to say it over with the bracha. Rav Vosna has a chiddush nifla in Chelik Zayin Simin Chaf, and again in Chelik Ches Lambat Ches, and he says that really Chatzi Hallel is also a Hallel. The minhag is that we make a bracha on Chatzi Hallel. We don't say Ligmar Sahallel ever, we say Likroi, right? The Christ Hallel. So he says, if you skipped a few words, it's not a Hallel. It's missing a few words. If you made Chatzi instead of Hallel Shalom, at least it's a Chefetz of Hallel. He says, I would think that you avad to say over the Hallel, but not to make a bracha. Okay, it's a Chiddush. But most poskim feel if you weren't Yoitza, you would have to repeat the Hallel with a bracha. Now, a few Hallel-related questions before we start Hanisim. It happens often that we finish Hallel together with the Shatz. Do we say Amen to the Shatz's bracha? Or maybe, since I just finished, it's like being Oino Amen al Berchaisav, which is Meguna. So the Paiskim say that really Hallel is one of those things, a group of brachas, that you're supposed to say Amen on your own bracha. Like we do by Boinei Brach Mishalayim, Amen. Some do, come out, you don't see it anymore, but after Taka Psuka de Zimra, the Shliach Tzibur, everybody says Amen. So he says, even though we don't do that, the Paiskim say, but when it comes to it, the Hallel, after you finish Hallel with the Shliach Tzibur, say Amen and have in mind it's him, not you. Also, people ask, when I'm middle of Hallel, do I answer Yehesh Pei Rabbi? The Chazan is flying. He's saying Kaddish, I'm middle of Hallel. The basic klal is that Chatzi Hallel is like Psuka de Zimra, and you're allowed to be mafsik anything except Baruch Hu Baruch Shemoi, or that type. But Hallel Shalom is like Berchas Krishma. So only what's mutter during Krishma is mutter during Hallel. If someone was called to an aliyah during Hallel Shalom that is, so then he goes up, but he doesn't Mel Mishaberachs obviously, and he doesn't even lay along with the Bal Koira, which is a Chiddush. We rely on the Shittas, you're allowed to give a Suman aliyah, because the laying along is not Ma'akib. Azoi Vait, we're concerned about Hefsik. Now, part 2 of the shir is the Hanisim, as we said, has very prominent early sources in Tosefta, Masechta Sofrim, and basically the Sheiltis. Lamaisa, we have to take it very seriously. The Levush in Taf Reish Pei Bei Sif Aleph, Mamash says how we say it in a half a line. He says you say on 8 days of Chanukah Al Hanisim she'ikah Chanukah lahoydais ulahalel. That's the ik of the Yom Tiv. So in other words, there are 2 ways lahoydais ulahalel, Hallel and Al Hanisim. It's not extra credit. You should know the Beis Yosef and the Bach and Simon Tov Reish Pei Beis quote Rishonim that hold that Al Hanisim is Ma'akiv. The Bach passing like that. Baruch Hashem, we don't. So L'maisa, if you forget, you don't daven over. but it's a very good idea to put a reminder in your siddur, a tissue, a card, whatever it is, keep it there for the 8 days, and every time you get there, you'll remember. If someone forgot to say al hanisim in davening, so if he's still in the middle of that bracha of v'choil achayim, so the place can say go back, say al hanisim, and the bialach in kuf yudal at si vav adds, after you finish al hanisim, start again from vi'al kulam. Start from there and say the bracha straight. So it has more of a panim. A little of a chiddush, but it's not a chiddush if you think about it. Let's say he said, Akel Yeshua Seinu, and then he chapped, because he said the word Hashem's name. He chapped, I didn't say Al Hanisim. Does he go back? If he goes back, he's going to have to repeat again, Akel Yeshua Seinu. So the place say, so what? What could you do? You have to say Al Hanisim. In other words, it's not like, extra credit. If you do it good, if you don't do it, Oichid good, get it in. Smuggle it in, even if it means repeating a kale. Now, how do I know this is true? Because we'll soon see in benching, the Mechaber says, if you forgot Al Hanisim, you could say it, Kozman, you didn't say Baruch Ato Hashem, of the second bracha of benching. In benching, you say right away, so you're repeating Hashem Lekeinu Nachnu Moedim Lach. There it is. What could you do? You have to say Al Hanisim. It's so important that we'll repeat Shemus of Hashem, except, of course, as we'll soon see, Baruch Ato Hashem. So basically, you always try to get the Al Hanisim in if it is at all feasible. The only exception, but it's pashit, is let's say you're already holding, you said Baruch Ato Hashem, either in Shemay Nesra or in benching. What do you do then? So people impulsively say, but it's wrong. You can't say a pasuk tilim in the middle of davening. And also you look at the Magen Avram, Kuf Lamed Hey, Siv Katan Ches, you'll see it's not an Eitzah Gemura. You started Baruch At Hashem L'Shem Bracha. To convert it to a pasuk in Tehillim is a Chatzi Shem Hashem Levatol. Lamaisa, the Chai Adam in Chav Dalet Ches, the Mishnah Kuv Yudal Lamed Beis, and the Ber Moshe has a beautiful tshuva in the Chelik Dal Yud Ches, all say, if you said Baruch At Hashem in Shemay Nesra, then you finish. You have no choice. You finish that bracha, and then we'll soon see you put it into Elokai Nitzor. Now, the Das Torah, the Bejana Rav, Reish Sadik Dalet Sif, Dalet says, let's say you said, you finished the bracha. Could you put it before you start the next bracha? In between main bracha le bracha? So he says, no, it doesn't belong there. It's not Hoidah. The Sharet Tshuva in Tov Reish Pei Beis, Sif Cotton Aleph, brings 2 days. So you're allowed to put Mashav HaRuach bein bracha lebracha. That's at least there it fits somewhat. But here it has to be in Haidah. But Rabbi say, what to me is the biggest chiddush, what the Paiskim will say, that if a person forgot Al Hanisim, and he remembered at the end of Shemay Nesra, after Toiv Shimcha, you put it into Alakai Nitzar. Now, that at first makes no sense. Someone once asked me the Shaila, he forgot Mashav HaRuach, he remembered Baruch Hashem, El Milakai Nitzar, and he put it in there. So I said, it's a good joke, but it doesn't make sense. In fact, the Paiskim say, you can't add Yalav Yavoy in Lakai Nitzar. Why? It doesn't belong there. So how do you put in Haidah of Al Hanisim in Lakai Nitzar? So we would say maybe it's wrong, but it's not wrong. The Smak and Yotes, the Meiri and Brachas Daf Lamed, both say you could put it in Tachnunim in the end of Shemay Nesra. Now, it's a chiddush. What's pshat? But you look in Shulchan Aruch, you're not going to find this halacha. We'll soon see in benching, we'll find that you put in later, but we don't find that you add it to Shemay Nesra like Hayin Tzor. The El Yerabah in Sif Cotton Bays, and the Lashon is very important, he says, if you left that Al Hanisim, you put it into a Rachamon, Kol Shkein B'Tfila, if you left out Al Hanisim, Tzarech Laim Akoidim Yehi L'Ratzain. You hear what he said? Kol Shkein B'Tfila. You know why? Because of the 2 Al Hanisim, which is a bigger chiyuv? Benching or davening? Avada davening. The Shilta says that. Because benching, you're not mechuyev to eat a suda. So if you have to squeeze in Al Hanisim in benching, Kol Shkein and davening. The Mekar Chayim, the Maimon Mordechai, the Shulchan Shloimeh, that's of Shloimeh Vilna, in Sif Cotton Aleph, listen to his lashon, Imlay Nizka Ad She'ama Hashem, Yoim Acha Tfila, Acha L'Kai Nitzar, koidem yehi l'ratzayin. So we know it's real, it's legitimate. The Mishnah Berurah says it in Sifkat and Dalid, and listen to his lashon. Hu adin, when he says it, when he left the al Hanisim, when he says it, so Yom came b'tfila, acha gemara tfila, derech bakasha, koidem yehi l'ratzayin. So we are definitely convinced if you left that al Hanisim, you have a choice, an option at the end of the kain nitzar. But the question is, it doesn't make sense. Bishlem, you put it into benching with a rachman's good. It's a rachman. How does it fit into benching? It's a davening. Wait. Yeah, we're going to get to that soon. Wait. But here I think the Mishnah Berurah Kedarka, with his tremendous Yait Shmaya, added a few words. He added something that does not say in the El Rabbah that he's quoting. He quotes the El Rabbah, and he says, Yoima achatfila derech bakosha. Now, Rabbi, I'm going to tell you something which sounds like a chiddush, but it's not. The Paiskim say this. When we say you add a kind of what does that mean? You say al Hanisim? You don't say al Hanisim. What does al Hanisim have to do with a kind of You're going to have to say harachamon hu yasalon nisim, and then you're going to say b'mei matisyo. So the Chavetz Chaim understood that we're going to sort of reprogram or re-identify the al Hanisim into a tefillah. Harachman is a tefillah. Now, once you say harachman, then you could say matisyo, what we want. But it's not that you say al Hanisim in al kain nitzar. You say harachamon in al kain nitzar. It's derech tefillah. Oy bazoi, it's very good. And if you look at the Taz, Taf Reish Pei Bei, Sif Kot and Gimel, nearly kol shkein b'tefillah, not only bench kol tefillah, im shachach sheyuchaloi menusach zeh harachamon, which he means at the end in the kain nitzar. So I think it's pashit. I didn't find anybody speaks this out, but it's pashit that if you did forget and you want to put in a kain nitzar, you say harachamon and b'mei matisyo. So if you want to ask your children or grandchildren a riddle over Chanukah, where do we say harachamon in davening? Say it can't be. They'll say in a kain nitzar, but they'll say we never did it because we never forgot to say al Hanisim. So they're ahead of you. But l'maisa, we have a harachamon in the middle of davening. Now, Lamaisa, this is why it fits in. And that's why the minhag is, if you do say it, now where to say, that's a good question. So there are many paiskim that spell out that you say it after the kain nitzar, before the Yiratzin, at the end of Shemay Nesr. Now some, Nusach Ashkan only has one Yiratzin, don't forget. But it's clear from the Shulchan Shloim, I read you earlier, who says, Achat tefillah, achal kain nitzar, koidem yehi l'ratzin. I did see it. Chutshani says you say it before after the first Yiratzin, but it seems that Lamaisa, that's not the minhag. Mishnah Berurah in Tafkuf Samachay Sifkat and Zayin regarding Aneinu and Ataina says that you put it after the Elokai Nitzar, and that's where it belongs. The next group of questions, al Hanisim in benching, which is also interesting, you live and learn. Lamaisa, it's not ma'akiv, no doubt about it, no chiyav suda. But Lamaisa, here we find in Rishonim as well, the Kolboi in Siman Chafei and the Rashba in Chelik Zay in Tafkuf Lamed Beis. If you forgot al Hanisim in benching, say it in the Rachamans towards the end of benching. Now, again, it's not ma'akiv, but if we understand that's the ik of the Yom Tiv, we'll try to get it in somehow to make it more complete. Now, here's my next question. This is quoted, by the way, in Ramah, in Taf Reish Pei Bei's Aleph, and much earlier in the end of Kuf Pei Zayin Hilchas benching. In other words, the davening edition is not in Shulchan Aruch. The benching edition is twice in Ramah. Now I'm going to ask you a question that is much trickier than it seems. Good. I remembered, in the middle of Atayva Meitiv, the fourth brach, I didn't say al Hanisim. Where do I insert it in benching? I'll give you three choices. Right away after Ayach Hasreinu. Why there? I'll tell you why. It's very pashut. Because the lashon of the Ramah is, if you forgot to say the harachamon, you put it after when you complete that bracha. Kishmagil harachamon zok the Ramah yoim harachamon hu yasalanu. What does it mean? Shegil harachamon. Could be he means the first harachamon, not harachamon hu yasalanu. Why there? I'll tell you why. It makes a lot of sense. Be'emes, the minhag in Brisk, that was the minhag in Brisk Rav, and Be'emes the Rambam, that when someone says the birchas oireach, that you add in benching when you're by someone else's house, you say it right after ayachasreinu. Why there? Because I think it's pashut. Because the birchas oireach is a chiyav gama, which it says in the Gemara. In fact, the Beheitiv, Hilchas benching says it's a chiyav deraisa. V'chaltus v'ot rachte es Hashem alekecha es rabbis balabayis. I can't say it's deraisa mamish, but it's definitely much more of a chiyav than a rachamon. A rachamon, some don't even say. So priorities. This is a chiyav, and that's the rishus. And there are some that say that when you add it in benching, if you remembered after ayachasreinu, you put it right then and there. I know that's a kiddush, but that's to make sense. Many people follow the Paisik Achron. Who's the Paisik Achron? The Siddur. The Siddur puts it in the Rachamon, the regular Rachamon that we say at the end of benching. Now, the K'tzais HaShulchan, in Mem Zayin says the Minhag Oilam, taka, to put it there, before Yizakenu. But I even saw one of the Paiskim say, put it after the last Rachamon, before Yiras Hashem. Because Tadash ain't a Tadah, that's right. A Rachamon we say every single day. Now you wake up, you forgot, you're getting all nervous. You know, what do we do on Chanukah, on Rosh Chodesh? Which Rachamon goes first, Rosh Chodesh or Chanukah? Avada Rosh Chodesh, Tadir. So why is the Rachamon any less? So you have 3 Minhagim. If you forget Hanisim, my advice to you is don't forget Hanisim, you'll have a problem. But I think the Minhag Oilam is like Taka the Siddur, and you put it in that Harachamon. Now, Lamaisa, this is important to mention that the Hanisim is not just a extra credit. I had this shaila and I stopped asking how things happen. Someone, the good news, he remembered the Hanisim. The bad news is he said Biimei Mardechai ve'Esther. Okay, I guess he was a Zariz and Adalayada. Tesefes Purim. Anyhow, so Lamaisa, interestingly enough, that he wasn't Yoitz Hanisim for Chanukah, but is it a hefsek for his benching? So this is part of a big sugya in Kuf Ches, in Hilchas Tefillah, in Yud Beis, when someone added something to davening that wasn't chiyav, but it's, like he said a tefillah. Yeah, anything. So it's not, it doesn't belong there, but it's not a hefsek. But something that's wrong, you say, by Rosh Chodesh Hazeh, it's not Rosh Chodesh, it's already a sheker. So if you go through the sugya, you can trust me, some hold it's a hefsek. But at the end of the day, the Paiskim seem to feel, that's when Mishmur seems to machriya, that even a shek does not passel the davening. It's inappropriate, but it doesn't passel. So our case, probably, you have to know the nusach. You see, really, it could be it's not even a sheker. Biimei Mardechai ve'Esther is a nice shevach. Bazman hazeh is really going on Chanukah. So hopefully it's not a sheker. But even if it is, there are those that Mishnah seems to hold it's not a hefsek enough that passel the davening. But again, halt cup and say the right thing. We had either same one, same prayer. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Same thing. If it's not, it's not check. Now, someone, of course, the minhag is that a gabai is supposed to announce when we have a me'ain ha'ma'ura. Now, really, there's a chiyav smichas gula tefillah, and there's no announcements by shachris. But Maariv, even though there is a chiyav smichas gula tefillah, but not as much, and that's why the Rashban at Tshuva Paskins and the Machab and Reish Lamed Vav Siv Beis quotes this, that the minhag is to call out even Yalav Yav and Rosh Chodesh, and understandably, it doesn't say beferish, but who adim mishdok mishbura al Hanisim on Chanukah, even though it's not ma'akiv, but it's part of davening. And I was once in a shul, and an inexperienced gabai clapped ice Yalav Yavai by Shachris. And he did not yet daven. He was davening with the tzibur. So that's a terrible mistake, because that no one does. But definitely we announce the Hanisim and Yalav Yavai. Many people have the minhag, many shul have the minhag, that they don't want to talk it out, so they give a clap. Fine, wonderful. I would suggest one night a year the gabai should announce. Someone asked me the true story. He said Yalav Yavai and Maariv on a random Tuesday night. I said, why'd you do that? He said, because the gabai clapped. I knew Rosh Chodesh was last week, but I didn't know what else could be. So I said Yalav Yavai. What was it? December 4th, December 5th. It's on Talmud Levracha. So people don't chap, and they're not thinking enough to chap. So I advise they should take a call out, saying Talmud Levracha. After Hallel, typically we say Kaddish Teskabel. Why is that? Because the Kaddish Teskabel is going on the Shachris. Now, on Chanukah, we say Chatzi Hallel. What's the reason? Very pashut. Because Chatzi Kaddish. Yeah. Chanukah is a Chatzi Kaddish. We'll soon get to Rosh Chodesh. Why? Pashut. Because the Ma'isa there's no Musaf, so the Chatzi Kaddish is the correct Kaddish. Grada on Shabbos Chanukah or Rosh Chodesh Echal b'Chanukah, then we go back to the original minhag of Chatzi of Kaddish Kabel. The question is if this happens quite often on a regular day Chanukah, you're supposed to say Chatzi Kaddish. He said Tiskabel. Now, typically, people say, no, and he's so nervous, he finishes, and then he says, no, yeah, what do you want? He woke up too late. So the Maisa, you cannot say another Tiskabel at the end of Avodah because you said it already once. But Chatzi Kaddish is inappropriate, so he says Kaddish Shalom without Tiskabel. That's the Halacha. Now, a shatz being an aveil on Chanukah is tricky, because Gans Aveilus is totally in Minhagim. But Lamaisa, we do find a makar that he could daven Shachris, Mincha, and Maariv. Just Hallel, he shouldn't be saying. He should step to the side, let someone take over for Hallel, and then he goes back for the rest of Shachris. That's a mini kodem grad I should mention. Very few people do it, but that's a mini kodem. The Mishnah in Tafresh Pei Gimel, Sif Kon Aleph, he says Lamaisa and Avel, he shouldn't have Shachris at all. Mincha Maariv he could, not Shachar. He says Maariv. I wonder maybe Mincha is different because there is an Hanisim and Chazar, but Mincha Maariv he could. The Vilna Goyin, this is quoted in the Milas Asulam, an interesting story. Someone went up to daven Purim, Mincha, and Avel, Purim, Mincha for the Yomid. And I guess the minhag by the Goyin was he wore towels over his head. So the guy looked at him and said, Avel v'chafui roish. In other words, you don't belong there. The Goyin's minhag was that on Purim, I guess Chanukah or Adin, not Shachris, Mincha or Maariv, and each shul, of course, should follow their own minhag. An important halacha, when you do have a changing of the guard, and let's say either an Avel on Chanukah, or let's say the Baal Shachris is not a big chazan, and someone else will take over Hallel. Who says the Chatzi Kaddish at the end of the Hallel? So everybody knows that the Kaddish Tiskabel should be the Shliach tzibur. That's true. But this Chatzi Kaddish obviously is going on the Hallel. So let the Baal Hallel say it. And that's what Shlomo Zalman says on the Cheshloima, both in Hilchas Tefillah and Hilchas Chanukah. Our minhag is that before Yom Tov we try to give a little of a gishmak, of a zevach mishpacha, table talks. I'm going to leave you with four, original fair kashas for Chanukah. Some are tricky and some are easy, but something to give over to the family, the children at home. First of all, question number one, Birchas Haftorah is typically we say on Shabbos. On a Yom Tov, we also mention the Yom Tov, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Gimel Regalim. Why on Shabbos Chanukah is there no mention of the Chanukah? So the emphasis could be Pashit, because like I told you earlier, why do we mention in Me'ein Shalosh? Because it's only belongs in a place of Aidah. The Maariv has a strong lashon. Everybody knows it has to fit into Aidah. But the emphasis we could do better, because we have a different kasha. Shabbos Reish Chodesh, without Chanukah, we of course have an Haftarah, and we do not say Reish Chodesh. Why not? So the real teretz is that if the day is mechayev independently a Haftarah, like Gimel Regalim and the Yom L'Royim, then you add it when it's Chal B'Shabbos. But Chanukah, Purim obviously also was not again, and Reish Chodesh is not mechayev in itself an Haftarah. So we have two terutzim why we don't say it why we don't add the Chanukah in the Haftarah, the brachas. Second question, a different nature, and that is we saw based on Shulchan Aruch, clearly Ramah, that if a person left out al Hanisim, whether davening or benching, harachim yasal on Hanisim, like he did Lavesein about Memezman Hazeh. Frag di Bechor Shor in Shabbos Daf Chof Aleph. How are you allowed to do that? We know you're not allowed to ask for Nisim. It's wrong to ask for Nisim. So how do we ask Yasalonu? That's a tefillah. Don't forget, we saw it's a tefillah. So his first teretz is, if you say it davening for a rabbim, then you have a free pass. Davening for a rabbim is special. But just for a yachid, like the case of Gemara, he wants his wife's carrying a cave to become a zacha, that's inappropriate. He says that's why you look at it, that a lot of the tefillahs, the tachnunim, ki meitzeischem eretz mitzrayim erenu niflois lashon rabbim. But then he asks an interesting question. He says, so why? He says, by the Ratzon that we say by Nesias Kapayim, he says, Sasa li neflois v'nisim. Look at the Nusach. We say a Lashon Yachid. How did I do that? So he says, you have to say a Lashon Rabbim. But I looked in Sidurim, and it says a Lashon Yachid. So could be the answer is a second teretz. He has a second teretz that the chiluk is to ask for a nes that's b'shloike derech hateva is wrong. A nes b'derech hateva is okay. So if someone is, when he says the hiratzah in Nesias Kapayim, you want to keep the Lashon Yachid, that's what Klal Yisrael does, fine, but you have to be limited to a nes b'derech hateva. If I'm wrong, please correct me. The third question, a beautiful shaila, many forms, but I'll tell you two forms for Chanukah. Let's say someone, he knows he davens at a certain pace, and he finished Maariv a little late, but he always catches Kedusha. He has a mazel. But Chanukah, he has to add al Hanisim. Takes him longer. And he knows from other years, by the time he finishes al Hanisim with Shemona Esrei, he misses Kedusha. So he wants to know, maybe he should skip al Hanisim. This will say Kedusha. Because don't forget, al Hanisim is very important. But Kedusha is a deraisa. Mishnah and Kuf Chav Hey quotes Arizal to deraisa. So the emphasis is, first of all, for us, we're a little sensitive about that, because Hanisim is not a pushover. But Lamaisa, the same question is on a regular day. A person is davening Shemona Esrei, and the tzibur is moving. Should he hurry up his Shemona Esrei? So here, again, it's a very important point. What comes to mind is a famous Radvaz in Chelik Dalet Siman Yud Gimel. Somebody asked the Radvaz, he was in jail, and he had one day to leave jail. Which day should he choose to leave jail? The first day, or wait for Shabbos Chanukah, or maybe Yom Kippur? Radvaz says, Ein Mavin Ala Mitzvahs. Now, do it now. Chacham Tzvi and Kuvav took strong exception. He asked him, Menachos, wait for the better day. Can we say our Shail is totally in that machlokes? According to the Chacham Tzvi, that makes no sense. You have to have priority. Maybe you should skip holidays for Kedusha. Like the Radvaz, right now, Emavirin. So the emphasis, it's not convincing. First of all, the Tzemach Tzedek in Malum Chayshimish B'Yud Aleph, he says, to skip al Hanisim l'chatchila is mashanim b'brachas. But more convincingly, here we have a different factor. The Ritva in Sukkah Chaf Hey says that oisig mitzvah is not just a p'tur, you're not chayiv in a mitzvah when you're doing another mitzvah. If you do it, you're not yoytz the mitzvah. So how do you drop a Shemona Esrei with al Hanisim for another mitzvah, be it a bigger mitzvah? And that's what it seems, that you don't skip al Hanisim. In fact, someone asked of Steinman, he's a kohen in Eretz Yisrael on a random Tuesday morning, and if he finished Shemona Esrei, he's going to miss duchening. Maybe he should say Shalom Rav instead of Sim Shalom. Yash says, Steinman says, no thank you, don't bother. In fact, I saw Reb Shmuel Kamenetsky in a Sefer, says a bigger chiddush. He's very crafty. He'll skip al Hanisim, say Kedusha al Kain Itzar, and then he'll say the Harachman Hu Yasalanu al Kain Itzar. And even that, toig nisht. And last but not least, let me leave something really beautiful. We know the Minhag by many is this daven Mincha, erev Shabbos Chanukah before the Adlaka. There are two reasons given. Many Hasidim keep their original Minhag, that Adlaka is their Chanukah, and then Mincha. I should mention what the Paiskim say, if there's no minyan, then don't daven Mincha, be a chiddush just to have that Minhag. And I would add, Rapam always added, if your wife needs you at home, or your mother needs you at home, better stay home, Shalom Bayis, so you keep it up as doicha, and you'll daven Mincha like a half a Klal Yisrael, bisman. But here's a question. Rav Stein Zalman used to say, when Chanukah, the first day, comes on Shabbos, Chafei Kislev is Shabbos, then there's more of a chiyuv to daven Mincha before Adlakas Ner Chanukah. Why? Manishtana Chafei leChav Ches. He had a beautiful cheshbon. Let's look at your location. It's erev Shabbos. You lit Ner Chanukah. You said 3 brachas, including Shechianu. Now you come to shul. You want to daven Mincha. L'char you have to add al Hanisim. Why? You said Shechianu Azman Hazeh. That's considered bringing the Yom Tov. So it's already Allah. It's already Chanukah. But you can't say al Hanisim. So for that reason, you have to really go all out to daven Mincha before. Rabbi Yashiv says it's not true, and it's for his Poshet. What is the Shechianu going on? There's no Tesefis Chanukah on the mitzvah. And when is the mitzvah? Chav Dalet. The point is that the Ikka is to do things right. And listen to the heilige words of the Chassam Sofer in the Minhagim. He said, the Chanukah, he was very makbid to always say that we have to learn more than the rest of the year, because these days are given Yemei Chanukah, Asher Tiknu Chazal, Lahoydais Hallel, and the limit on Chanukah is greater than the rest of the year. So the most important halacha is part of Lahoydais Hallel is the extra learning on Chanukah, Alichtige Freilich Chanukah Tiur.
Shem Egen Shir Torah, like to give a big Yasha Kirk Smith for today's shir. I'd like to remind the Olam next week, Hanukkah, Sunday, the shir will be, the Smith shir will be Bez Hashem at 11 o'clock. Please let everyone know next week, 11 o'clock. Have the great schos of sponsoring a shir called Egen Shir Torah, 718-851-8651, or email ist@yeshivana.com. After the Kadish, or Smith Bez Hashem says Sikkim of the shir. Chananya ben Akashem, Motzakadosh Baruch Hu Lezakis, as he saw the figure Hebron Torah Mitzvah Shenema, Alena Chofes, Aman Sidke, Yagdul Torah V'Yader.
Hey!
Sikkim and Chanukah davening.
Let's just chazar. We learned to Bez Hashem. First of all, the Ikka of Chanukah, as we saw, and hopefully we'll see, is the Ha'idus Hallel, and even the Hadlakas Chanukah, the Pesumei Ner Chanukah, the Pesumei Nisa, is a form of the Ha'idus Hallel. Some have that minhag to say Ner Salalu after the first lichla that they light, but at least if you don't have the minhag, at least to think of the words that the Ikka has to bring out the person's hergeshim, the Ha'idus Hallel. The fact that there are 8 days of Hallel Shalom. So the Hal has to be moist of Halach, like Lakas Ner Chanukah is. The point that is that the Hallel is very much part of the mitzvah on Chanukah. The Hadlok in the Beis HaKnesses with the bracha, and even lighting the first night where there was no nes yet of Chanukah, of the Ner's Chanukah, indicates that Lahoydes Hallel is the Iker of the Yom Tiv. If someone has a suffix, if he said Hallel, he repeats it without a bracha. Noshim, if they could, should say Hallel. There's definitely more of an inyan on Hallel on Chanukah than other Yomim Tovim, but priorities, a person that's busy with children is definitely potter. Any kapitel, any shevach would be enough. There are two minhagim regarding aveilis. Either they say it in the base oval in the side room, or they say it when they get home. But everybody holds that the oval and the aveilim, the mispalim must say a Hallel someplace. If a person said Chatzial instead of Hallel Shalom, he should definitely say over Hallel, probably with a bracha. Be careful not to miss a word, because even missing a word is already a problem. You could say amen to the Shatz's conclusion of Hallel, because you're saying it on him, not on yourself. Dinei Hefsik in Hallel Shalom is like Birchas Krishma. Enechanami, the Hanisim is not Ma'akiv, but it's a very prominent part, and it shouldn't be just taken lightly. If you forgot it in Shemay Nesra, you could put it in any time before Baruch Atah Hashem, and you go back, you say Al Nisim, and then Ba'al Kulam, and you go straight. If Baruch Atah Hashem was already said, then it's lost, and then you continue and put it in the L'kai Nitzar, as we said, before the second Yilu Ratzain, you say an original Nusach, Harachaman Hu Yasalanu, Biimei Chashmanoim. The Halacha is that in benching, you could add it an arachman at the end. There are 3 minhagim in the Paiskim, but it seems the prevalent minhag is arachman yasalanu nisim, and you put it in there. Someone said b'mei Mardechai ve'Esther, he's yoitze in davening or in benching. The gabai could clap ois al Hanisim. He doesn't have to. He actually could either announce it or clap it ois. Some have a minhag that the gabai says it out loud when he gets there. But Chatzi Kaddish is always said after Hal, except for Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, Chanukah Rosh Shabbos, or Rosh Chodesh and Chanukah coincide. If the Shatz is an aveil, there are different minhagim, what he could daven, if he could daven. If there's a changing of Shatz after Hallel, the Shatz for Hallel says the Chatzi Kadish. There is no mention of the Haftarah because Chanukah is never mechayiv an Haftarah. We don't ask for a nes unless it's either for a rabbim or b'derech hateva. We don't skip al Hanisim to be able to say Kedusha. Someone asked, why don't we be yotze with hearer? So the whole kasha doesn't begin. But Teretz's Taisus says that even though Shemei Ka'oina, but Aniyah is better. And the last halacha, Mincha erev Shabbos, is totally Minhagim, and even Chav Dal Kislev, some justify the minhag to say Mincha after Halachos Neiros.